Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're exploring cultural crossroads. You know, those really dynamic places, sometimes physical spaces, sometimes not, where different cultures, well, they meet, interact, and really influence each other.
It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and we've got some interesting material to draw on. There's Virginia Garza's book, Cultural Crossroads, Where Traditions Meet, which looks at that fusion of global traditions and modern life. And also Ria Borkar's LinkedIn piece, Cultural Crossroads, where different worlds meet and merge. Slightly different angles, but both getting at this core idea.
Right, one maybe a broader sweep, the other focusing on those specific meeting points.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to get a handle on what these cultural crossroads are, how they impact things, and, that tricky balance between holding onto heritage and embracing the new stuff that comes with our connected world.
That balance is key.
It really is. So maybe you've thought about this in your own life. How cultures blend, maybe through food or music you love or travel experiences.
It's almost unavoidable today, isn't it?
It feels like it, but what actually happens when these different ways of life come together? Let's get into it.
Okay, so thinking about definitions first. Borkar has this great analogy, doesn't she?
The marketplace one.
Yeah, exactly, like a bustling marketplace. People aren't just trading goods, they're swapping stories, traditions, ways of seeing the world.
It's a nice image. Makes it feel very alive.
It does. And she really stresses it's not just about a physical place. It's also where ideas, beliefs, languages, even just daily habits intersect.
That's a crucial point. It broadens the whole concept.
And it connects interestingly with Garza's work when she talks about, say, the Silk Road, those ancient trade routes.
Right, the historical examples.
Yeah, Garza points out these were like early cultural landscapes. They weren't just for moving silk and spices. They were conduits for ideas, religions, technologies, shaping whole societies along the way.
So seeing it through that historical lens from Garza, does that change how we view Borkar's more contemporary take on, say, online interactions as crossroads?
That's a good question. I think Garza gives us that sense of deep time, This isn't a new phenomenon, just maybe accelerated or changed in form.
Right. Okay, so back to Borkar's marketplace. She emphasizes it's a two-way street. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mutual influence. It's not one culture just overwhelming another, ideally. It's about evolution, change on both sides.
And she uses food as a prime example, thinking about cities like New York or Mumbai.
Yes, the culinary fusion scene,
Yeah.
where, traditional recipes get mixed with local ingredients, local tastes, creating something completely new but still rooted.
And Garza mentions that too, right? Global ingredients popping up in local kitchens and chefs almost being cultural ambassadors.
Exactly, using food to bridge cultures. Garza also mentions food festivals specifically as these sort of temporary crossroads, places designed for that very exchange.
It makes you wonder, though, is all this fusion food a sign of deeper understanding, or is it sometimes just, chasing novelty, market trends?
That's a really critical question to ask. Is it appreciation or just consumption?
Yeah, but moving beyond food, this idea of celebrating diversity comes up strongly in both sources.
Definitely. Borkar talks about how festivals, art, music, dance, they all converge at these crossroads.
She gives examples like Rio Carnival.
Right, that incredible mix of African, indigenous, European influences.
Yeah.
Or Buddhist chants in Japan, finding new expressions, maybe blending with other sounds. These unique things add so much richness.
It's part of that global tapestry idea she mentions.
And Garza really aligns with this when she talks about fashion, music, art, acting as these like universal languages, platforms for people to connect and collaborate across cultural lines.
So it sounds overwhelmingly positive fusion, celebration, collaboration. But it can't be that simple, surely. Do Borkar or Garza talk about the, let's say, trickier aspects?
Oh, for sure. Borkar is quite clear about the challenges. Things like cultural appropriation definitely come up.
Right, that's a big one.
And also the struggle people face in preserving their own identity when they're surrounded by so many other influences. Plus, just plain misunderstandings that can happen when different worldviews collide.
It's important not to gloss over those difficulties.
Absolutely not. And Borkar stresses that the way through these challenges is things like, well, dialogue, education, and just fundamental mutual respect, trying to understand before judging.
And Garza adds a layer to that, doesn't she? She looks critically at the influence of, say, Western trends globally.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
And she brings up that whole debate around cultural appropriation versus genuine appreciation. Where's the line?
That's such a tough line to draw sometimes. How do we distinguish Based on what they write, what signals respectful engagement versus, well, harmful taking.
It seems to come down to intent, understanding, and giving credit, doesn't it? Appreciation involves learning, engaging respectfully, acknowledging the source, whereas appropriation often involves taking something out of context, superficially, maybe for profit or trendiness, without that deeper understanding or respect.
That makes sense. Intent and context. So thinking bigger picture, how do these crossroads actually shape, like, society itself, our identities?
Well, Borkar suggests they have a pretty profound impact. They influence societal norms. What's considered acceptable or normal can shift. They shape individual identities. They can even influence political landscapes.
And she talks about hybrid identities. What does that look like in practice?
It's this idea of people who comfortably bridge different cultural worlds. Maybe someone growing up with immigrant parents in a new country.
Okay.
They might blend traditions from their family's heritage with the customs of their new home. They speak multiple languages, navigate different social codes. They create this unique identity that draws from multiple sources, feeling a sense of belonging in that multicultural space. It bridges the old and the new.
That resonates. And Garza's work seems to support this idea of identity being fluid, evolving, especially now.
Exactly. Garza sees it as part of the natural evolution of culture in our super-connected world, and Borkar really picks up on that connectedness, especially with technology.
Ah, the digital age.
Right. Yeah, Borkar talks about the internet, social media, creating these virtual cultural crossroads. Suddenly, distance isn't the barrier it once was.
So global dialogue becomes much easier, or at least possible on a much larger scale.
Hopefully leading to more understanding, yeah. Technology becomes this powerful tool for exchange, for maybe even fostering a sense of unity, as both writers seem to
Yes,
suggest.
there's always a but, isn't there?
There often is. Borkar brings us back to that crucial point about preservation. Amidst all this mixing and matching and changing, how do we hold on to cultural heritage?
The unique stuff that defines a culture.
Precisely. She calls it a delicate balance. You need to safeguard traditions, the things that provide roots and identity. But you also need to embrace change to keep the culture alive and vibrant, not just a museum piece.
And Garza touches on that too, the challenges and opportunities in preserving traditions today. And she specifically brings in sustainability and cultural heritage.
Right, how can traditions be maintained in ways that are sustainable, both culturally and environmentally, perhaps? It's a complex equation. It really makes you think about how that balance plays out day to day, even in small interactions.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up as we kind of pull back from this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
It seems clear that cultural crossroads, whether they're a city street or an online forum, are these incredibly energetic spaces. There's exchange, celebration,
Yeah.
but also sometimes real challenges.
Definitely dynamic.
Hmm.
And they clearly play a huge role in shaping our world, influencing everything from, what's on our dinner plate to how we understand ourselves and relate to others.
Couldn't agree more. And that final thought from Porcar really sticks, doesn't it? That our world thrives on this diversity.
Yeah, and that we're all part of it. We're all participants, consciously or not, in shaping this more interconnected, hopefully more inclusive world.
So on that note, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. As technology keeps shrinking the globe, connecting us faster and faster, how is our idea of local cultural identity changing?
That's a big question.
It is. Think about that constant push and pull between cherishing the unique traditions that ground us and the kind of inevitable fusion that happens when different worlds don't just meet occasionally, but are constantly interacting right in our own communities, both physical and virtual.
Something to definitely keep thinking about.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.